Hi guys, so we're officially into week 2 of the Mistborn the Final Empire read-along, and I'm so excited because this particular chunk just has so much stuff happen. Just like last week, I am going to have polls throughout the video so that you guys can let me know your take on things. I'm also going to put up the results of last week's polls so that you can all kind of get an idea of how many people felt the same way as you and how many people felt differently. I personally feel that something that can be kind of surprising, I guess, or maybe difficult about Sanderson's writing is that there's often a decent amount of setup, but then the payoff is fantastic. And even though we're not by any means at the end of the book yet, we're already starting to see that. I personally found part 1, and I still, even in this reread, think that part 1 is interesting and there's a lot to it, but it's not something that like constantly makes me want to turn the page. And I don't think that's a bad thing by any means. I like a slow beginning. I like feeling that the characters are slowly being revealed to me rather than just everything all at once. So I appreciate that, but I do think for people who are new to Sanderson, it can feel like it's taking a while. Do you all agree with that? Do you think that Sanderson, that it's true maybe that his stories have a fair amount of setup at the beginning with good payoff later? Do you think that right now it's too early for you to tell, or are you like, no, I was hooked from page 1? This particular chunk, though, I think definitely hooked me. I've read it before, but reading it again, even knowing what is going to happen, I was still constantly enthralled. That part when Vin goes with Kelsier to Predict Shaw, I was just so on the edge of my seat, kind of. I felt like I completely could visualize what was happening. It was so exciting, and it was also very much scary, you know, because you're fearful for Vin and Kelsier, and the Inquisitors are so intense, and we went from having our heroes feel like they are invincible. There's that line where Vin kind of says, and she admits it sounded stupid when she said it, but she says like, I guess we're not invincible, are we? So our characters just seem like they have so much power, and then the Inquisitors just kind of like shut them down. I'm already wanting to ask another question though, because I can absolutely understand Vin wanting to feel like she is a part of something and wanting to be involved and not just wanting to go get dressed up and go to balls. And so I understand her desire to accompany Kelsier. But also, when you see how dangerous the Inquisitors are and how close she came to dying, you also realize how crazy it was that Kelsier let her come along. She really did not have a full scope of the situation, and Kelsier is supposed to kind of be the leader. He is supposed to know the consequences. I personally think he shouldn't have let her come along. I think she just didn't understand. It's easy to say it's her own fault because she asked for it, but she did not have all the information. She did not realize just how intense the Inquisitors are. But let me know what you think. Do you think that that whole thing that happened was Vin's fault? Do you think it was Kelsier's fault? Or do you think there's... I should say there is some blame on both sides. I still feel like it's Kelsier's fault. I mean, he's basically the grown-up in this situation, and she's kind of a kid. I absolutely love, though, that it was Sazed that saved her. In this chunk, these little snippets you get of him, he's just so intriguing, and he's so very different from both Vin and Kelsier. He's very much his own person. He's somewhat docile, but there's this inner strength to him. He's just so fascinating. I think that Sazed is absolutely one of my favorite side characters. I'm definitely interested to know who your favorite side characters are. I think for me, in this amount of the story, it's gotta go to Sazed. And I love that he saved her because he just seems so sweet and nice, but there's something there, right? The fact that he was able to fend off an Inquisitor enough to save her. There's also been a lot of really funny moments throughout this chunk. One of my favorite moments has to do with Vin and Elend, and I found myself very often smiling when their interactions would happen. I want to know, this is going to be another poll question, do you think that Elend is playing her? Do you think Elend is genuine, or is it too early to tell? What are your thoughts of Elend so far? The part when she was like dancing with all those guys and he had his books all on her table, and she just kind of offhandedly is like, I've never been very good at math, after saying that he's got to be at least twice her age, and he's like, I'm 21, unless you're like a really mature 10-year-old. That part to me was just super funny, and it was definitely a huge contrast to how dark some of the moments in this chunk were. When she sees what happened to her former crew and how their limbs were ripped apart and they were tortured, and then she sees Cayman was hung with a hook and everything, it's just like, oh my gosh, it's described in a decent amount of detail. And not only is there all of that, but then we actually see a little boy, a little Ska, killed because he was begging. And again, going to the contrast of Vin seeing all this glamour at the ball and then leaving and then seeing this kid's killed right there, right outside. And I just think that having these lighthearted moments, not the kid dying, the Ellen and Vin interaction, having those kinds of lighthearted moments mixed in, and Kelsier as well, because Kelsier has a lot of pretty entertaining lines. I think it's almost necessary, because otherwise this would be so depressing and so dark. Mistborn is often, of course, praised for its magic, and we certainly get a lot more of the magic in this chunk. We get introduced to ATM, which my husband, when he read this, he read it after I'd read it, and he was like, dude, ATM's awesome. I was like, I know, it's so cool. So the fact that they can kind of slightly see into the future is, I think it's so, so cool. Obviously, we don't get to see that a ton, and it's not like they're constantly using it the way they're using their other metals, but I like that little introduction to ATM. Also, because this is a buddy read, and it's not a spoiler, I think I can definitely let you all know this, and it's kind of like, hey, cool, I feel a little more informed. So when Kelsier goes to meet with his informant, that character's name is Hoyd, and for those of you who are new to the Cosmere, Hoyd is a character that shows up in every single main Cosmere book. So fun fact, you just got your first Hoyd spotting. I'm gonna cut myself off. Let me know what you have loved, what you've hated, what you've been lukewarm about in this second chunk of the read along. But anyway, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all later. Bye.